Hey guys, welcome to the last episode of Terminator Dark Fate, and this episode is called The Sounds of Terminator Dark Fate. Now, obviously I've used synths, and I pointed it out when we were sitting behind the computer, like where some of the signature sounds come from. But the majority of the sounds that you hear in the score actually comes from acoustic instruments, not from electronic instruments, but they were electronicized, if you will, synthesized with sound design programs, with filters, resampling in old samplers, recording them in, using weird plugins. So a lot of sounds come from that. So I thought it was an interesting concept because in this movie there's a lot of humanity going on. Not only just robots, but there's a bunch of other scenarios going on at the same time. Plus we have people in this movie that are not 100% robots and not 100% human. So there's everything in between. So I wanted to use organic instruments and then synthesize them to get the robotic feel, besides the synthesizers that I've used, which I've shown you in some of the previous episodes. So let's look at what instruments we have here. We have a stand-up bass that we're going to get to. We have a cello that we're going to get to. Here we have a metal chair. We're going to get to the metal chair as well. And here we have a bass amp with a bow, a couple of sticks. I have a pickup in my hand. And we have this beautiful Fender jazz bass that we're going to ruin for that we're going to use for that, I should say. I just knocked the string out already. Then we have this really nice 80s amp, the Jazz Chorus 120, which was made by Roland. This is a newer reissue, by the way. This is not an oldie from that time period. Here we have a Gibson Les Paul Deluxe, and we have a Spanish guitar, and we have a Fender dobro guitar. And then after that, we're going to go into the other room where I have, I think it's a 1973 or 74 John Bonham reissue kit that I used for the drum parts in this score. Let's start with the Spanish guitar. Okay, so I played you already a couple of things in the previous episodes, how I came up with those chords, really mellow Spanish type of sounds for Danny. But I also used it for all the Terminator rhythms, and I did that together with this guitar, the dobro. So I tuned the string down to C, the lower string, and the rest of the guitar is still like in a normal tuning, but with the C in the bottom. So that way I could play all kinds of chords with the C always there, which is kind of what the original theme had for the Terminator. And so I would actually use a pick for this. I mean, if you had nails long enough, which I don't, you could play it like... Oh. It's pretty warm in here with the lights, so it keeps detuning. So if you had fingernails long enough, you could play that really powerful with your fingernails, but mine are pretty short because I'm playing piano and a bunch of other instruments. So I used a pickup for this one, a pick for this one, and to get that. Now, when you play it acoustic like this, it doesn't sound all that aggressive, but with plugins and with distortion and with sound design program, I was able to make it really, really aggressive. So there's a separate episode on the Spanish guitar. So let's just move on to the dobro, which I also have tuned to the low C. Let's see if that... It's still like in tune. Now, what makes this guitar very special is this whole metal constellation here that basically creates extra resonant frequencies to the guitar, the resonators. And so this gives it somewhat boxy metallic sound, but it's a really interesting sound. So whatever I played on the Spanish guitar with these Terminator chords, I would also play on the dobro. You hear that kind of like frequency in there that's a little gnarly. And And that's what these resonators do. Now, I also use the pickups to hook it up to like an amplifier, put more distortion on them, do some sound design on them. I got some really interesting results from the combination of these two both guitars. So that's all over the score. Now, let's go to this electric guitar and let's see if it's working, because that would be great, wouldn't it? Let's see. Okay, we have sound. So this guitar is just tuned in a normal tuning. Now this has that very 80s guitar sound with that chorus on it. So the sound that you're hearing right now is actually not appearing like this in the film, but I made all my really long drones from this. So if I were to play the Danny chords, a little out of tune, but I would play them all separately multiple times, and then I would granulize them, sometimes up to like 30 minutes or so. So one chord would be stretched over 30 minutes. Now there's a couple of programs you can do that with. You can do that natively in Cubase or in Pro Tools or in Logic, but there are also great plugins for that. You can use, for instance, Portal, which is a very good plugin. You should definitely check that out. Then there's programs like SoundHack and Pulse Stretch, where you can really stretch the sound very long. And so you get these really interesting characters coming from this electric guitar, but then one chord that is normally takes like 10 seconds in total, but now it becomes 30 minutes, and you get all these really amazing harmonics and really weird sounds. And I played you some of these sounds in the cues when I was working on them. So you get really interesting results with that. So that's where the electric guitar came in. Okay, now let's unplug this thing and let's move over to the bass guitar. I'm going to unplug this thing, and we're going to stick it in here. Boom. And if we're lucky, in the wonderful world of sound, we should have a bass sound. Let's see. All up. Very gnarly distortion bass sound. So I played a couple of things with this. One is a cue that's called Sarah's Arrival. So it's kind of like a blues, just really tough blues riff. I wanted to create something that felt desert rock. You know, for Sarah Connor when she arrives, like something really tough, because, you know, she's older and she's been living this life in Mexico, but also in the southern parts of the US, chasing these Terminators. So I wanted to do something really tough and gnarly for her. So this is what that riff became. So very bluesy, shuffly riff. So that is for her. I'm going to pick this thing down, and now I'm going to take a drumstick. So for the Terminator rhythm, every time when we hear the drums playing the ram-bam pam pa bam, ra-bam pam pa bam, I'm actually also playing that on the bass with a stick, with a somewhat similar sound on this. A little less distortion. And a little bit more brightness. You hear those really nasty overtones that you get from that? That's what I loved, and that's why I played it with the stick. Now the other thing that I used is harmonics, also played here, but then here I'm playing the harmonics. So instead of the open string, I find any of those really gnarly harmonics, and then I'm playing. So you would have that's the idea. Obviously, as you can already see, 9 out of 10 are wrong, and 10 is like, okay, that's a good one. So you have to play this for a long time, and then you cut the ones out that are really, really, really awesome. I'm not going to bore you with playing this for half an hour, and maybe we have 1 or 2 that are great. So I'm going to stop here, but you get the idea. Okay, so that's what we did with the bass guitar. Let's put the bass guitar away. Let's make sure we don't have any sound. Okay, boom. So now we get to the chair. Yes, I'm sitting on a chair, but the chair is also a piece of metal. So this is a piece that we actually recorded a few times. So now these are the sounds that I've played you in the theme spin-off. I played it to 2 other cues, and I showed you how to do sound design on these. So we just used 2 microphones, just a clang, just record like a bunch in. But not only this chair, also like the garbage bin outside and anything you can find that is like metally in nature. It could be a pen, it could be the washing machine. I mean, be creative. Just hit on something. Your neighbors will not like it for half an hour, but from that point on, you have these sounds forever and you can use them for all kinds of cool stuff. So that's the chair. The chair can go. So can the sticks for now, until we get to the drum kit. So now let's go to the cello. I really wanted to play these instruments to understand the instruments better. So I got a violin, I got a viola, I got a cello, and I got a bass. And I didn't buy expensive instruments, really. You know, I wouldn't say the cheapest on the market, but I think the cello was like $600. The violin was $250, and this bass is previously used by somebody for $800 or $900 or something. So it's doable, and especially when you don't play strings. So I have a lot of fun playing these instruments. But the cool thing is, since they're mine, and this is not a Stradivarius or another incredible expensive cello maker, I can do with it what I want. So if I want to kick it, I'll do that. And a real cello player would get a heart attack if I do that. So with its expensive instrument. So I also have a pretty cheap bow, and instead of playing it softly, like I'm going to play it really gnarly. So that's what I wanted for the Terminator. So every time the riff starts, I would really dig in. So it's for the downbeat, but also the offbeat. When I play the cha-chan, chan, cha-chan, da-dun, chan, cha-chan, cha-dun, chan, cha-chan, I have these really weird, oh, you see, there the hair goes. So I wouldn't make a real cello player very happy with this if I did this on this $150,000 bow. Yes, you heard that right. A real bow of a real player can cost up to $150,000, $200,000. That's not even the instrument, that's just the bow. Not this one, as you can see. This one came for free with the cello, so I don't care what we do with this, it can go. So let's move on to the bass. Bass, wonderful instrument if you know how to play it. As you can see, it's pretty tall. Funny enough, this thing is a little closer to what I know with the bass guitar. So I understand this instrument a little better than the cello and some of the other instruments, but I do have a lot of fun playing them. Okay, so this bow looks even worse than the cello bow, because I beat the bass up even worse than I did the cello. So the same idea here is that I wanted something very powerful on the downbeat. So here we go. So these sounds, I recorded this with a bunch of different microphones around it, and I got a really, really nice tone out of it. So normally this instrument has a nice round tone by really pressing it hard. And I'm also, you know, I'm holding the stick completely wrong here. The bow. To really get a lot of aggression there. So I'm using it almost more like a saw than actually a bow. Also, this bow came with the bass, so it doesn't really matter what I'm doing with this bow. But again, I have so much fun playing these instruments, and I have so much more respect for so many players. You see, the cameraman stands right on top of the cello bow, but it doesn't matter because the bow came with the cello. But let me take it out of the way so I actually can use this bow for future recordings. So, okay, we saved the bow. That's really good. So let's see, what else we're going to do. Okay, so those are the bass, the cello. We talked about the bass. We talked about the chorus guitar, the Spanish guitar, and the Fender guitar. Let's follow me into the other room. So I'm going to sit behind my drum kit right there. So, this is the reissue John Bonham kit. This thing sounds so incredibly awesome. I mean, I don't know what to say. I'm just going to show you how great this thing sounds. Really cool. Anyway, so Terminator. There's a lot of action rhythms in this movie, and I programmed, let's say 50% of it with the drum library that I have, and then I would double it with things from this kit. Sometimes I'll record it twice, sometimes I'll record it 4 times, depends what I needed. So for instance, for the signature rhythm, I use the bass drum, this one right here, and these toms right here. So it will sound like this. Really, really thick sounds. Some of the faster rhythms, when I take the snares of this thing, I would use these two. And then that would be on top of like. So to combine these different takes together, I created my action rhythms in combination with the programming. The sounds of Terminator, maybe you might be surprised that actually most of it comes from these organic instruments. And then they're treated badly or good, depends on how you look at it, with distortions, with sound design elements. And that way I was able to create sounds that I really wanted to use for this film. So, I hope you like this episode, and I hope you like the Terminator episodes Dark Fate that we made. And I'll see you soon for a regular studio time. Thank you.